Shut up and sit down.
Alright. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of More Content Talk. That's the only show that cuts through all the glam, the glitz, and all the bullshit to bring you all the truthiest news that we could find. And tonight, I found something pretty interesting. I don't think many of the other outlets are going to report on this. I'm going to talk about our obsession with death-defying acts. Now, what do I mean by death-defying acts? Well, a death-defying act is sort of what we would refer to as a miracle. It's something, an event that occurs that a large group or a small group of people attend, where a kind of wager is set, where it's like, well, I'm going to do this thing that, 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, most people would just, drop dead doing this thing, but I'm not going to die. I'm going to be superhero god type man and, transcend reality and prove that miracles can happen. And that's essentially what these, sometimes they're referred to as magic shows, but they don't have to be magic shows. They can be sports. Being able to, say, get hit in the head and not die is a death-defying act. That happens in a lot of sports like football and even baseball. When, you get that 100-mile-per-hour fastball chucked at your head and you're just kind of expected to be able to get out of the way. Sometimes people don't. Sometimes that can be fatal. And sometimes it can just, really shake you up. I got plunked a few times when I played baseball, and man, those stick with you. I did get hit in the head one time, but I had a helmet, and it wasn't thrown that hard. But some of these guys, they get hit with these pitches, you're talking 90 to 100 miles per hour, and you're telling me that that's not a death-defying act? I don't know. Even some of the stunts in something as, fake as professional wrestling can be fatal, I'm sure, And even, the theater, and, you see sometimes these rigs where people are flying in and stuff like that. That can be completely safe, and then there are times I've seen it not work, and, I just recently witnessed a person who fell, as they're, like, trying to ride in on this zip line to look fancy for some musical, and it was just like, ah! And then they just, fell like 25 feet. I think the person survived. There wasn't a lot of information in this particular report I saw, but it did happen. I had seen, I think it was an instance with Cirque du Soleil. It was a Cirque du Soleil type of act where, like, they were making, like, a human chandelier, and the whole fucking chandelier, it was a chandelier because it ended up in shambles. It collapsed, fell all over the place, and it was just like bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies. It was like all these, attractive women just kerplunk. And I'm sure, they rehearsed for weeks, and, a lot of precautions were taken, and they did what they could. But the reality of stuff like that is that if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, a lot of people get hurt. So it's real people up there, and it may seem almost surreal to have those people in front of you doing these, mind-bending acts, but they're mind-bending because you could die if you make a mistake, and that's the reality of stuff like this. And I saw a lot of different stuff that people take as kind of parlor tricks, take sword swallowing, for instance, the thing where the people put the swords down their mouth, like, shink, all the way down their stomach. When I grew up, right, there was this kind of, myth out there, I guess, that these people just had, irregular sized throats or something. And maybe they do a little bit, but I actually saw people training to do this sword swallowing act, and they're gagging initially when they're doing it, and there was all this talk about if they're just, like a centimeter off, like that could be the end, and it's actually quite dangerous, and people get hurt doing it. And there was a particular act where this person had put himself inside of this tiny cube filled with water. This was this little tiny person, maybe 5'2" or something like that. And then the cube was filled to the brim. So if he put his body and he submerged his head into the water, and then is trying to pick the locks, kind of hunched up like this and going over like that, with his hands above his head, basically sticking his hands through these tiny little holes in his fingers to jimmy up these locks as he's stuck in this cube of water. I mean, this is something that medieval torture people would have had wet dreams about. I mean, they would have loved this little torture device that this guy was able to come up with. I mean, can you imagine them putting a witch in that thing, in like a cube? Don't they have like cubes like on their little staffs sometimes? I mean, that would have been so cool. Why didn't they think of that, right? I'm saying that to just highlight how, why would someone do something like this? Why would someone want to be, anyway, he's submerged in the water, and this guy fails twice at this, okay? And he survived both times. I don't know how this guy is so stupid and so lucky at the same time to I mean, already right off the bat, can you imagine you're walking around, hey, Timmy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Timmy says, well, I want to be a garbage man. He said, oh, well, that's nice. And you move on to Cassandra, and you say, well, Cassandra, what would you like to be when you grow up? And she says, I want to be a doctor. He said, oh, what kind of doctor? He said, I want to be a heart doctor. He said, wow, that's so nice. And then you move on to this bozo over here, and you say, hey, asshole, would you mind taking your hand out of that fucking cube? Pay attention. Trying to ask you what you want to be when you grow up. And he says, well, I want to be in that fucking cube, man. But not just my hand. I want my whole body in the fucking cube. And you're like, all right, whatever. Could you, go, just go to the office. Just not do this today. Just skip to that part where you just leave. It's that kid, that like, hey, I could eat 8 eggs at a time. 8 whole eggs at a time. I can do it. They say you can't do it. I can do it. I'll get in the cube. I'll get in the cube of water. Why? Anyway, this idiot submerges himself and almost drowns in rehearsal. So he does a rehearsal, almost drowns. The crew has to come and save him. And then, lo and behold, they get to the big day, and you know what happens? The same thing. He almost drowns, and the crew have to come and save him. And it was crazy because, this guy gets pulled out of here, right? And he's like blue. I mean, and the average person, I think they said, can hold their breath underwater for about 30 seconds. This guy did it the second time. He did it for like 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 goddamn minutes he was holding his breath underwater. What the fuck? And so this guy comes out. He's like blue. He's like flopping around. And the people, you know what they do? The audience? Yay! Woo! Good job! Positive vibes! Woo! Netflix and chill! Fucking hashtag, what the fuck are you people doing? Call a fucking ambulance. The crew called the ambulance, thank God. That's why they're there, because if it was just the crowd, if there wasn't a crew, that they'd still be standing there. You realize that, right? It'd be 2 years later. Yay! Yay! Woo! Nobody call an ambulance. No. We haven't been told to move yet, so just keep clapping. Keep clapping. Oh, hashtag clap till you die. I don't know what to say. What the fuck? Anyway, Bozo survived. I mean, he's alive and well. Well, I don't know how well you can be after, submerging yourself underwater for 3 minutes. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's going to help you in any way, shape, or form. It might, maybe harm the old brain a little bit. But maybe he'll forget he was a magician and never try it again. I hope so. then maybe they'll stay alive longer, past 30. Yikes. And how is it that we want to go and witness these things? Isn't it interesting? And the people were so amazed and amused. And I've also just witnessed some of the stunts. If you get into things like rodeo, which is very dangerous, especially for the horse. The horse is put through absolute, torture when they're doing these rodeo shows. Or bullfighting, that's very similar. All these different spectacles where, people are getting harmed, or animals. It's basically the same thing. Living sentient beings who feel pain are being harmed for sport, for fun. Is it normal? Is it normal to be amused by the live suffering of others? You even get into something like heckling, when people heckle people at a live, event. You fucking asshole, you suck. You suck, you son of a bitch. By the way, I'm not a stand-up comedian, so this isn't like a personal thing. I know sometimes, you talk about stuff like that and people are like, oh, well, this is just some performer being mad because he got heckled. Hey, look, I invite heckling when I perform. All right, I think it adds to it. So it's not that. What I'm looking at is just like, why do people do it? Why are people motivated to interrupt? Is it just like a fun thing? You like to watch the person squirm a little bit, maybe? I don't know. I'm always looking into suffering and trying to figure out, okay, what are the causes, and also why do some people, or a lot of people, if you actually look at it from the aspect that I'm looking at it, why do a lot of people enjoy to inflict suffering upon others? And perhaps it's a subconscious urge. Much like, some of the other emotions that we have that are repressed, or, maybe perhaps like jealousy. Like, I don't think anyone wants to feel jealous. I don't think anyone says to themselves, I'm going to make a conscious decision to be jealous of Kathy because I just don't like her. I think it's like more subtle. Like it's a slow build, and, rage kind of builds up over time, jealousy, anger even. Most people don't just become angry right like that. Like there's some sort of cause. And so what is it that makes us desire this spectacle of death? And I think it's in the term death-defying. I think that we want to defy death. And having these magicians, these wizards, these showmen and showwomen, and, witches, whatever it may be, who are doing, very real things in this reality to make it appear as if they have magic powers, even though they don't. I think this thing that people are always talking about when they say, well, I need religion, or I need spirituality, or I need something in my life, I think it's just this desire to escape death. And the real death, not the fantasy death, where it's, something that you can enjoy or have control over or play a part in. It's just death, and it's a part of life, and it's a fact of life, but people don't like that fact. And so I think by watching others perform these great feats of athleticism and, stunts, that gives us some comfort. But, if you really look into these stunts, what you'll find is most of them, if not the vast majority, end in tragedy. The horrible. I watched a whole report today of just all the times that these different acts had failed. There was one that was on live TV, and it was a knife throwing act. The act where the person just is supposed to throw the knives around the person. you would think, okay, everyone knows this is fake. Why don't we just maybe not use a real knife? But again, people wouldn't be satisfied if they found out. So, oh, you're cheating me. I want my 5 cents back. Oh boy, I'm gonna need my 5 cents back. They want to see blood. I want to see blood if someone makes a mistake. And that's exactly what they saw. This guy was nuts, and this magician was hurling knives. And the next thing you know, one of them hit this lady right in like the eye. And he didn't stop. He kept going. He hit her a couple more times with a few more knives. And finally, people stepped in. It was like, oh my God, there's blood. Someone call an ambulance. On live television. Death-defying. What are you trying to tempt death for? I wouldn't do it if I were you. I've done it in the past. It doesn't work out well for you. It works out fine for death. Death will be okay. Death will be around. Death isn't going anywhere. Your ass is grass if you fuck around with death. Don't do that. Don't tempt. It's not fate, it's death. You're gonna die. Don't mess around with it. And I don't think maybe taking pleasure in other people's death maybe ain't such a great idea. Now, I mean, you want to have a little fun from time to time and, watch a movie. Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'm not talking about that. But I am saying, like, these are performers. These are people who perform in these shows. And that's near torture. There is another act where the act is there's a nail under one of these 3 bags in front of me, right? And I'm going to show you which one or how magical I am by smashing it and not getting the nail in my hand. Well, the good news is that the magician didn't get the nail in his hand. He did not. He was able to elude the nail. The bad news is that his assistant that he chose to fulfill his, majesty, he just happened to slam his assistant's hand onto the nail and impale the beautiful assistant with the nail. So this was done on live TV as well. So we have drownings, we have animal abuse, we have some lovely stabbings, we have some wonderful I didn't tell you about the lighting of the hand on fire. That was the best. It was ranked number 2 for some reason, which I don't understand. But apparently this flame breather whatever in Amsterdam just decided to blow some fire and just blew his fucking the fire, lit his hand on fire, and it's just he's like, oh, that's not part of the show, and his hand's just completely covered in blood. It looked like a nub. Wow, that's entertainment, eh? When you go to the theater and heckle people, are you hoping that they just like have a heart attack and die on stage? I hate people in general. Fuck off and die. Yay! Very Roman, these Americans. No, I know all you aren't like that, especially you that listen to this show. But I will say this. Don't get too caught up in these, magic and, torture type performances, these death-defying performances, all these stunts. Because if we're going to find anything that's going to defy death, it's going to be in a lab with, some intellectuals in lab coats figuring some real science out. So maybe, I don't know, get your kicks looking at some scientists discovering some, new therapies for cancer. Maybe that could be a reality show. Let's cure cancer. Huh? Nah, it would never get picked up. Not interesting enough. Anyway, this has been More Content Talk. Remember, you can support us on Anchor. You can go to our website, which you will find on Anchor. You can go to morecontentplease.org. You can also go to our YouTube page at More Content Please MCP, as well as our Instagram page, More Content Please MCP. And you can also check us out on Pinterest as well as TikTok. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful night. And remember, When life gets you down, laugh at something else.